It's 8:30 over here, so I'm in my PJs.
My name is Chris. My pronouns are they, them, and I am a doula, an abortion doula. Um, and I am currently in Oregon. I'm in Portland, Oregon, but I did my doula training in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm from Phoenix. So,
So you're just all over the place.
yeah, I'm all over.
I love it. So what made you want to be a doula?
I was working with an abortion fund called Access Reproductive Care Southeast in Atlanta, Georgia. And part of my job as being a bilingual healthline coordinator was taking folks to and from appointments sometimes, especially if I couldn't find volunteers in the area. And then there was a couple times where I had to take someone all the way up to Washington, D.C. so they can access safe and compassionate abortion care. Um, and I remember having a conversation with my co-director at the time after coming back from one of those trips, and we were talking about all of the work that I did, the emotional labor, the like physical stuff, the all of the support that I provided for the 5 days that we were in DC. And they were like, "You're an abortion doula. Like that is exactly what abortion doulas do." And I was like, oh shit. I didn't think that I ever was one or provided those services. And then about a year after that, during the beginning of the pandemic, she provided the whole staff with an abortion doula training with DOPO. And so we all became trained as abortion doulas because it's basically similar work to what we did on the Healthline and with practical support. So it was just like nice to have an overall training that was like specific for abortion doula work.
So what specifically, like what would be your duties as an abortion doula? Like what do you do?
Um, it could vary, just like everything. It depends on what the person needs, but usually if it's practical support, so driving them to and from their appointment, um, providing, because it depends on how far along they are, how long their like cramping period is. And so I have a lot of the escorts that I've done have been with folks who are later in their pregnancy. And so just like, providing like warm water bottles or heating pads, if they have questions regarding like the abortion process, being able to answer that, making sure they're comfortable, giving them comfortable food or comfort foods, medications. There's a lot of talking about like heavy grief that comes along with that. And some folks are happy. Abortions aren't always like really bad and really sad. Um, but sometimes like grief that maybe they haven't touched on can resurface during this process. And so talking about, just being a safe space for them, because things like religion come up, a lot of like sexual assault comes up, experiences from other family members or other friends or other people that they know come up to. So just giving them like a safe and comforting space. Um, I didn't touch them too much, but there was someone that I worked with who was just cramping, and their cramping was unbearable. So I asked if it was okay, and they said yeah. And so I like rubbed their back, and they were sitting on a ball, trying to get through one of the like biggest contractions that they had. And so I was like, I braided her hair, and then I was just like rubbing her back, and I brought her water, and then I brought her meds, and just being a support person, kind of feeling out what they need, asking questions if they're not saying what they need. So like, are you hungry? Are you hot? Are you cold? Are you in pain? Do you need this? Do you need that? So that's a long-winded answer to explain
No,
what.
I love it because I was gonna ask you too, like how do you like include like shadow work with when you talk to them, um because and like you said, a lot of grieving comes up, a lot of religious stuff. So do you incorporate like any type of shadow work? Do you introduce them to that?
Yeah, so sometimes I get folks who are like religious based and want to pray. um,
Mhm.
and I have had a very long journey with religious stuff. And I
Same.
personally am not like religious. Yeah, my mom's Jehovah Witness, and we were I was born into Catholicism, but then over time, my mom transitioned over to being a Jehovah's Witness. So religion has kind of been at the forefront of my life a lot. Um, but during the training and just the work that I've done at the abortion fund and other health justice work that I've done, I kind of came to a realization that it's not about me. Like, I'm doing this work to support other folks. So if someone wants to pray, we'll pray together. It's not going to harm me. It's going to bring comfort to them. And sometimes I do kind of encourage like doing that shadow work and kind of questioning if they are carrying guilt, like where is that guilt coming from? Is it actually theirs? Or is it because they're afraid of what their mom is going to think? Is it because they're afraid of what their family is going to think? Is it because, there's that like lingering Catholic guilt or Christian guilt? So sometimes we do have conversations like that. I know I've had conversations about gender and sexuality with folks, which is very unexpected. And a lot of like pain came up in that. So just kind of walking them through the steps of being gentle with themselves, being kind, and giving themselves grace that even though they are experiencing an abortion and whether they are happy about it or sad about it, they're going to have waves of grief. And sometimes in those waves of grief, other things come up. There's so many layers to the pain and to the emotions that we hold that sometimes it's not what's going on in the moment, but just a trigger happened. And we're typically not allowed to like follow up with folks after we close our cases, but every once in a while, I have had some folks kind of reach back out to me and say like, I went to therapy, or like I talked to the school counselor and like now I'm starting college, and all of these exciting little updates from a lot of clients that I've supported. And it's just like beautiful to see that even though I couldn't get deep into the shadow work, nudging them to kind of take a look and explore those things really came to fruition. And a lot of them are doing great.
That's so awesome. You plant that seed and then they do what they can with it. I
Yeah.
love that. Um, so I was going to ask also, so you get most of your clients through the program that you do or on your own? Like, do they contact you or they contact the organization?
So I have been an abortion doula for people outside of the organization. And I don't necessarily like advertise myself. So I'm no longer with Arc Southeast, but I am going to start working with Bridget Alliance, which is another abortion fund. I start with them in October. And so I have had about 6 months of a break from just like abortion work. And I have done doula work for like close friends or for someone that I know. Um, I haven't necessarily advertised myself because I think when I left Arc Southeast, it was due to like life circumstances. I ended up moving and relocating abruptly. And so being on the West Coast, it didn't feel right to be a part of an organization that focuses in the Southeast. And I didn't live in the Southeast anymore. And so through conversations with my co-directors and stuff, I decided to leave. And in these six months, I really, really had a chance to kind of sit with myself, the work that I've done. And what resurfaced is that like I deeply care about abortion work, especially being like an abortion doula and supporting folks through those things. Because it's a scary thing, whether it is something that you decided to do and you're excited about it, or you decided to do and you're really, really sad, or something in between. It's still really heavy and it still takes a lot of energy. And so before it was just kind of like people that knew me, and through the organization, through folks on the health line that I would meet that needed the support. um, but I am kind of thinking of just letting folks know up here in Portland like, hey, I'm the resource. If you need me, I'm down to support if I have capacity.
I think that would be a great idea, especially now with everything going
Yeah,
on, you know. And people don't really know that abortion doulas even exist, are a thing, you know.
yeah, that's true. I've gotten the that's a thing a lot.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I would definitely put myself out there, but I understand it's also a lot of work for yourself too. So how do you take care of yourself? Like what's your self-care after, you know, a job?
um that has been really hard for me, to be honest. um But over the last year, I've been really, really trying to focus on just like taking nature walks, especially now that I live in the Northwest. It's beautiful up here. The nature is gorgeous. So there's a little forest path behind our apartments. And so sometimes I'll go to the forest. I go to the coast at least once a month and spend a full day at the ocean. Um, Nature has been something that I have found that is like very healing for me, whether I'm on a hike or just sitting at the beach staring at the water. It's something very like refreshing and cleansing. I also am a power lifter. I have been kind of away from it for the last couple months because of COVID, but yes, I'm hoping to get back into lifting soon because that was something that released so much stress and so much tension, and I am missing it so, so much.
I could imagine. Yeah, I wish I could do that.
I mean,
Powerlifting.
you can. It's just starting small and then gaining your strength.
That's true. That's true. So, what would you say is like your most memorable doula moment?
Um, my most memorable doula moment. It was during election season, or during elections, actually. I had been working with this young person since they were like 8 weeks, I think. And they called the health line. They were very scared. They weren't quite sure what they were looking for. They knew they didn't want to be pregnant, but they didn't know where to start. And they found us online. Um, and so I ended up getting her case, and I worked with this person. We had extensive phone conversations because at home, there was a really big religious aspect to it, and mom was also holding a lot of grief from a miscarriage that she had recently had, and so she was like begging her daughter, like, please, don't do this, like, keep the baby. And whether it's consensual or not, it's still a person's decision whether they want to keep a pregnancy or not. But this pregnancy was not consensual at all. Um, and so, the young person I was talking to just did not want this pregnancy, did not want a reminder, just wanted to move forward with their life. And I think they were like 15, 16 at the time. And I went, finally mom agreed and was like, yes, that's fine. I went to go pick her up. The town that they lived in was probably like an hour, 2 hours away from Atlanta, from where I lived in Atlanta. And then I was like 10, 15 minutes away when she called me and was like, do not come. If you come, my mom will call the police and like charge you for kidnapping. Like, please don't come. I'm so sorry. And I was like, that's fine. And so I called my co-director and I was like, I don't know what to do. And she was like, just kind of hang around in case they change their mind. You still have time to make it to the appointment. If not, then just go back, just go back home. I ended up going back home. We tried it again a second time, which was a bigger drama situation. And she was further along. I believe she was like 18, 19 weeks at the time. And at that time, the cutoff date in Georgia was 21.6 weeks. So she was cutting it close. Um, and then this huge drama situation happened. Like, we had to three-way a lawyer just to make sure that like we were okay, because the mom was like threatening all kinds of things. But a social worker stepped in and was like, young person is medically emancipated. They are allowed to do what they need to do for their own health. And so through lots of conversation, I think it also helped that I'm Mexican, so I was able to speak to her in Spanish and explain things and like really listen to where her fear was coming from. And it was misinformation, that her daughter was going to be sterile, that she could
Mm.
die during the abortion, that she herself struggled with having children. And she was like, if I can transfer the fetus to me, like, I will keep it alive. And I was like, that's not how this works. I'm so sorry. So also working with mom's grief, we were able to get to the point, and at this point, like, as an abortion doula or as a healthline coordinator, I was just kind of like a mediator, because I also like, I'm not going to sway someone to do it or not do it.
Right.
It's totally up to the person. And so through conversation and stuff, I think mom felt a lot more comfortable. But at this point, she was already past 30 weeks. She was like 32. Um, and the young person was so sure that she wanted it. So we drove up to Washington, D.C., and it was a 12-hour car ride. We talked about all kinds of things. She opened up a lot about like her love for soccer and wanting to go to college and like all of the things, like all of the dreams that she had. Um, And, we sat there and I held her hand, like at first during the initial appointment. And then the clinic that we were at, DuPont Clinic, has their own like in clinic doulas. So I was able to kind of like be relieved and do some healthline stuff. And she had someone in the back with her. But I think like the most memorable part of that was just being there with this young person throughout the whole journey and just reassuring her and her mom that I was there for their best interest and kind of trying to figure out the root of mom's fear and where it came from and what was causing so much turmoil. Um, and I got a notification in August. I got a selfie from her of her first day in college. And she just looked so beautiful and so happy. And that was probably one of my favorite cases. I followed her along a time throughout her pregnancy journey, but being able to support her through that, be there with her at her abortion, and the first words that she said is like, "I can travel now." Like she came out of anesthesia and she was like, "I want to travel the world." That was her very first sentence, and everybody in the operating room cheered. Yeah, it was beautiful. We came back and mom had flowers for us and was like, "I'm sorry for causing so much trouble." She looks a million times happier and it's been like 5 days. And I was like, yeah, it's important to listen to your kids.
Oh my gosh, that was so amazing. Just the fact that you were able to talk with the mom, communicate, and like kind of talk her down, that's amazing. And I don't know, my first doula training, I didn't know it was for abortion. And um I thought it was a birth doula training, but then as the day went along, like they were giving us information about um, you know, what we were there for and the training. And it's hard. Like it's not an easy job to be an abortion doula at all. So you have to be so strong, so grounded, so spiritually connected. Like kudos to you. Seriously. um, I was going to ask you, well, I know that you help whoever calls, I guess, whatever case you get, but are there any important questions that you would ask a client before taking them on?
Yeah, so the more that I explore like what it looks like kind of being on my own and offering abortion doula services on my own, I'm also kind of like surveying, well, not surveying, but also kind of thinking of like what my clientele would look like and who I want to support. Um, and as I like workshop ideas and stuff, something that's really, really important to me is just being aligned with, like striving for liberation. And everyone has their own puzzle piece to it. Everyone has their own part of the movement that they're a part of. But what's really important to me is that folks are aligned with like queerness. I'm a queer person, and so I also want to feel safe with the people I'm supporting. Um, because I have to show up as my full self in order to be able to support someone. And also, spirituality wise, I've been thinking about that question a lot. And I think the question that I would ask is like, just let me know what you're comfortable with, or what are you comfortable with? Um, and then another question, I don't know, I just have so many questions in my head that I would want to ask. Like, I don't know if this is like an appropriate question to ask, but like, how do you feel about the current climate that we're at? Like trying to kind of field their answers because how like, can I cuss?
Of course.
I want to make sure that I'm not supporting some like racist ass person, like I really want to make sure that the clientele that I support aligns with my vision of the future. And that is just like every single person having autonomy and being respected and having like equitable spaces to be a part of, and not that like fake like, oh yeah, we want like black and brown people here, not that like fake diversity stuff, but like that honestly truly means it and is striving for that. um so I haven't quite figured out like the perfect question, but I'm still trying to figure out how to get to that. to ensure that the clients that I'm supporting align with myself, because I will be giving a lot of my energy and I will be supporting a lot, and I'm going to have to put myself in a very empathetic space. And that leaves me vulnerable. And like, I don't want someone who's queer phobic or anti Black or, like an asshole. I just don't want to deal with that. That's not my spaces to be a part of, especially when doing abortion doula work. Like I do that work outside of the doula work. And so when in doula work, I want to make sure that I can fully be present for the person, and not have to deal with like the really, really racist like husband that's there with them trying to get the
Mm.
abortion. Like I want to make sure that I'm safe and the person I'm supporting is going to be safe as well. Of course, I can't control family members. So like if they have like a super religious mom and stuff like that, that's different. That is what it is. It's not about the mom, it's about the person I'm supporting. So yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, definitely. So you would say your ideal client is, someone who you feel safe around too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you had to give just one tip to somebody who might want to be an abortion doula, what would be that tip?
Um, do your own shadow work and ask all of the questions, do all of the research. Um, I kind of like happened to be an abortion doula because I was working in an abortion fund and I was already providing, that kind of support. But my first big case that I had that I took to Washington D.C. really challenged me. And I was kind of ashamed to like talk about it at first. The person that I was supporting was 26 weeks. The case, like it was way more intense than any other case I've had. Um, and I had to be in the operating room to like support and stuff. And I saw the fetus. And sometimes that's going to happen, especially when the person you're supporting is a monolingual Spanish speaker and no one else in the clinic speaks Spanish. So I was her trans or interpreter every step of the way. And so she felt safe with me. So she wanted me in the room with her. Um, and she had some health complications that she didn't let us know about because she was afraid that they would send her to a hospital, and being undocumented, she didn't want to deal with that system at all. So, oh, that's another thing that's like important to keep in mind when doing doula work is like folk status, uh,
Mhm.
and being able to provide that kind of support, because other people would have probably taken her to the hospital, but she was really, really scared. And I know that hospital deportations happen all the fucking time. And I don't want to put her in that situation. So I was with her every step of the way. I was holding her hand. And, when the doctor got the fetus out, I saw the 26-week fetus. And that really, really challenged me. And it took me like a couple months to really work through that and see what it was that caused like, definitely not like anti-feels, but just like a really deep sadness that I didn't know how
Mhm.
to explain. And it turned out that it wasn't even mine to be carrying. Because when I really, really like soul searched, I guess to sound cheesy, like I definitely absolutely support every single person's bodily autonomy. And if that means having an abortion at 32 weeks, 26 weeks, 6 weeks, then that's what I'm going to do, to support them. So yeah.
And especially because whenever people even think about it, late term abortion, oh, the person is irresponsible or this, that, and the third. But there's always a backstory that you can't control. So, and that was also me when I had that abortion training, that I was just like, I can't do this. I can't support somebody. And because I saw the pictures, of late term abortions, and I was just like, what? I can't, this is heavy, right? But again, that's not for us to carry, especially as doulas, because we're literally there to support you no matter what,
Mm,
right? So
yeah.
yeah, I definitely get that. And if you had to give a tip to a client, somebody who is looking for an abortion doula, what tip would you give them?
I would say ask all of the questions. Whatever question would make you feel comfortable, ask it. They are looking for a service to feel comfort and to feel safe, to feel heard and respected and honored and valued as a human being. So Same thing as when like looking for a therapist. Shop around, date them, ask them questions. Um, I had someone ask me, like one of my friends, just being silly. She was like, "Are you a white supremacist?" And I was like, "Yes, I am." And then we started laughing about that. But like in all seriousness, like you can ask those questions, like as simple as like, how do you feel about white supremacy, or how do you feel about racism, or what are your thoughts on the Black Lives Matter movement? What are your thoughts on the workers' right movement? Like whatever is going to make you feel safe, ask those questions, because initial reactions will tell you more than what the person's actually going to answer. And listen to your gut. If your gut is telling you like, oh, this answer felt kind of weird, but it might be okay, no, you were going to be at your most vulnerable. You're going to definitely need to lean on this person, so you want to make sure that you feel 100% safe. So don't hold back. And if they get upset that you're asking certain questions like that, they're not the doula for you.
Who cares? Like, girl, bye.
Exactly.
um, so usually doulas, they're like jack of all trades. So every doula that I ever meet or talk to, they do other things. So what other things do you do, or are you into, or do you work on?
Um, I just had this conversation with my housemate yesterday. They were telling me I needed to chill because I do a lot of things. But so aside from like abortion work and supporting folks through their abortion, my paid time job is a community education specialist. So when I moved to Oregon, so like I knew there was racism here, obviously, because
I like how your Hispanic came out. So like I knew.
yeah. It's hard to stay in like my code switching for sometimes. Like I knew it was racist because it's everywhere, but like damn, leaving
Really?
Portland is like intense because there are all these
Wow.
tiny little farming towns, and there are people who like are so proud of the police force and like are in love with law enforcement and the military and have like Trump this, Trump that. Like it's such a strange, I mean, it's similar as to when I lived in Atlanta and I left the perimeter and I was like in like
Mm-hmm.
McDonough and stuff like that, where I was like, oh shit. um, but yeah, so anyway, I do community education. So I go into schools, organizations, and stuff and talk about LGBTQ equity, also like anti racism and stuff like that. But for funsies, I support an organization in Phoenix called Transport Pueblo. They are my home, forever will be my home. I started community organizing professionally, I guess, with them. And so I did health justice work. At the root of everything I do, just to like cut it short, is if it is connected to health justice, it is something I want to do. I strongly, strongly, strongly believe that if we don't have our health and well-being, we absolutely cannot do anything else, and we cannot keep pouring from an empty cup. And I'm saying that to myself as well.
Yes.
um, but yeah, so I like to do what I can when I can. I like to cook. Um, I'll be offering like some catering for a wedding this weekend. I don't do that like all the time, but every once in a while, if someone's like, hey, can you do this? I'll be like, sure. So I like to do all kinds of things. As much as I reject a lot of stereotypes and gender norms, I'm very nurturing. I love to cook. I'm very domestic. So I love
Same.
all of that stuff. If I can feed you, I absolutely will.
That's one of your love languages.
Yeah, honestly.
Same. Same. Yeah. I love talking to you. So how can people contact you? How can people find you?
Well, I don't have like an abortion doula page, but I have my Instagram. I guess like
Yeah,
Instagram, Twitter, I'm open to DMs. Um, I guess my Instagram handle is at Sarah Gris. So ZARACRYS.
that's your Instagram?
Mhm.
Okay, I'll
So
add it.
folks can DM me on there, and then we can move forward with like communication and stuff like that.
Awesome. So it was so good talking to you. I learned a lot. Thank you so much for talking to me and doing this. We'll connect. I'll find you on Instagram and we'll keep in touch.
Yeah, that
And
sounds good. Thank you. I am so excited that you invited me to do this. I've been following you on TikTok for a while.
yeah.
And I was on break and I was like, who's on live right now? And I never get on TikTok at work, but I did that day. And here we are.
Yeah, I usually I get on like I'm just like, oh, whatever, let's just see what we got, what we're gonna do. And then I do it every once in a while. And I'm glad I did and that you reached out. I
Yeah.
think we'll be in touch for a while.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm happy to. Where are you located?
I'm in North Carolina now in
Okay.
Wilmington.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So when you were saying like the Trump flags and everything, I'm like, yeah.
Everywhere. People talk about Oregon like it's this beautiful escape. I mean, outside, yeah, the trees are great. The
Yeah, I
people,
live by the beach and it's gorgeous and the town is gorgeous, but it's like todo blanquito and I come from New York, so I'm just like well, I mean, I came here when I was in high school too, but I was with my mom up in Thomasville, which was also oh my God, the boondocks. So, but then I went back to New York, so I've been out of the bubble of the Watts for a while. So coming back, I was like, oh my God, I'm trying to like find all my people.
me too. I left Atlanta, the beautiful bubble I had created. And now
Yeah.
I'm also trying to find my people, which are a little far in between. You have to like actively try not to be friends with white people here. It's so weird.
I feel that. I feel that. Well, this thing is about to cut us off. So I will talk to you later. Have a great night. Rest. Try to
Yeah.
rest.
Thank you.
Take care of yourself. I will. Thank you. Have a good night, Chris.
Yeah, you too, Amanda. Bye.